glance at Resistance 3, and you might peg it as one of the many modern military first-person shooters that are on the market. And in a lot of ways, this would be a fair assessment. There's plenty about Resistance 3's story, setting, and gameplay that doesn't fall very far from that tree. But after getting a chance to play through the first 3 or so hours of the campaign and feel out some of the game's competitive multiplayer, I found there's plenty that feels fresh about Resistance 3. Resistance 3 begins with a slick, comic book style cutscene that functions to catch up franchise newbies on the story. Basically, it's 1953 and an invading extraterrestrial force known as the Chimera have managed to wipe out 90% of the world's population and are sending out death squads to finish up the job. Suffice it to say, the situation is pretty bleak for the game's protagonist, Joseph Capelli. If you played Resistance 2, you might remember Capelli as one of your squad mates, and you might also remember him as the guy who shot the series' former protagonist, Nathan Hale, in the head. The story catches up with Capelli in his hometown of Haven, Oklahoma, where him, his wife, and his sick son have set up shop with a group of other survivors in a dingy, broken-down underground society. There's a pretty tangible sense of hopelessness here as you wander past bedridden civilians and cobble together light fixtures. It's these opening moments that will really pull you into the world of Resistance, and are some of the best that the first few hours had to offer. It's not long after a brief "here's how to shoot your guns" tutorial that the disturbingly peaceful start of Resistance 3 is brought to a halt by an attack from a Chimeran death squad. If there's one consistency between Insomniac's 2 franchises of Resistance and Ratchet & Clank, it's cool weapons. They might seem like your standard first-person shooter arsenal, but if you've played Resistance before, then you know that these guns are pretty different. You'll start off with the Bullseye, which allows you to mark enemies so that your bullets will auto-target them, and the Magnum, which can fill Chimeran enemies with a round of explosives that can be detonated using the secondary fire. The seeing and shooting through walls ability of the Auger, the long-distance marksman rifle that can drop turrets, and the shotgun will also all be at your disposal through the beginning chapters of Resistance 3. And then of course there's the multiplayer. If the recently launched beta is any indication, persistence is a key component here. Through gaining XP and leveling up, you'll earn access to different character loadouts and skins, as well as weapons and abilities. Based on the 2 game modes we've seen, Team Deathmatch and the objective-based Chain Reaction, Resistance 3's moment-to-moment multiplayer will feel similar to those already steeped in that style of game. Some lag and team balance issues definitely detracted from the experience, but that's what betas are for, right? It's probably worth mentioning that Resistance 3 looks great, not just from an art style perspective, but from a technical one as well. I was especially impressed with the game's bold, high-contrast lighting. The unnatural blacks and yellows of the skyline really help to emphasize the messed up state of the world. Additionally, aside from a drop here and there, Resistance 3 is running at a solid 60 frames per second, something that fans of the first-person shooter genre will agree can make or break the feel of the game. I used the word bleak earlier, and I think it's a perfect descriptor for the vibe of the start of Resistance 3. And the fact that Resistance 3 even has a distinguished vibe at all is great, let alone one as evocative as this. It's especially appealing considering the all-too-familiar military shooter direction that Resistance 2 took the series in. And while the multiplayer component may not be anything we haven't seen before, the game's creative weapon design, striking visuals, and story setup that's got all kinds of potential for dark post-apocalyptic tragedy has us thinking that Resistance 3 could easily end up being the best game in the franchise.
But now it's time.